Hello students, this is your English lesson. Today we are going to read Unit 3, The Adventure of the Dying Detective from Oxford Modern English Book 8. So we start our lesson. This is page number 36 from your book. Words to know first of all. Black Formosa corruption, a fictional disease invented by Conan Doyle. Cab, a horse-drawn carriage for hire, contagious, of a disease spread by one person to another by direct contact. Gaunt, lean and looking unwell due to age, suffering or hunger. Grudge, a persistent bad feeling towards someone caused by past insult or injury. Incessantly, constantly, without stopping, infallibly, incapable of failing, listlessly, lacking enthusiasm and energy, malicious, malicious with intended harm, murmurings, low or indistinct sounds, place of concealment, hiding place, resolutely, with determination, spasmodic, occurring in brief, irregular bursts, tapanuli fever, a fictional disease invented by Conan Doyle, with your leave, with your permission. Now come to the reading. Sherlock Holmes' landlady came to my house. She looked worried and explained, Holmes is dying, Dr. Watson. This morning I could stand no more of it. I said, with your leave or without it. Mr. Holmes, I am going for a doctor this very hour. He replied, let it be Watson, then. Hurry, sir. Oh, you may not see him alive. I was horrified, for I had heard nothing of his illness. As we drove back, I asked for the details. He has been working at a case in an alley, a narrow passageway near the river, and he says he caught this illness from the dock workers. He did indeed look terrible. His gaunt, writhing, wasted face, staring at me from the bed, sent a chill to my heart. The thin hands twitched incessantly, without pause. His voice was croaking a deep sound, and spasmodic, happening suddenly. There was a hectic flush upon either cheek, and dark crust clung to his lips. He lay listlessly as I entered the room, but the sight of me brought a gleam of recognition to his eyes. My dear fellow, I cried, approaching him. Stand back, stand right back, said he. I know what is the matter with me. It is a disease from Sumatra. One thing only is certain, it is infallibly deadly, and it is horribly contagious. Contagious, infectious. Holmes, said I, you are not yourself. A sick man is but a child, and so I will examine your symptoms and treat you for them. He mentioned me away. Keep your distance. What do you know of Tapanuli fever? What do you know of the Black Formosa corruption? I have never heard of either, but I happen to know Dr. Ainstree, the greatest living authority upon tropical disease. I am going this instant to fetch him. I turned resolutely to the door without determination. Never have I had such a shock. In an instant, with a tiger spring, the dying man had locked the door. The next moment he had staggered back to his bed, staggered, walk or move unsteadily. You won't take the key from me by force, Watson. I've got you, my friend. It's 4 o'clock. At 6, we resume our conversation. I had stood for some minutes looking at the silent figure in the bed. He appeared to be asleep. Unable to settle down, I had walked slowly to the mantelpiece. On it was a small black and white ivory box with a sliding lid. I had stretched out my hand to examine it more closely when put it down, Watson, this instant, I say. His head sank back upon the pillow and he gave a deep sigh of relief as I replaced the box upon the mantelpiece. Sit down, man, and let me have my rest. At 6, he shuddered and again made a sound between a cough and a sob. Then he began to talk with the same feverish animation as before. You will now light the gas, Watson, but you will be very careful that not for one instant shall it be more than half on. Now, please place some letters and papers upon this table within my reach. Thank you. Now, kindly use those sugar tongues to move that small ivory box to this table. Place it here among the papers. Good. You can now go and fetch Mr. Culverton Smith of 13 Lower Burke Street. I never heard the name, said I. It may surprise you to know that the man upon earth who knows most about this disease is not a medical man, but a planter. Mr. Culverton Smith is a well-known resident of Sumatra, now visiting London. If you could persuade him to come here and give us the benefit of his unique experience of this disease, the investigation of which has been his dearest hobby, I cannot doubt that he could help me. There is no good feeling between us. His nephew Watson died horribly. He has a grudge against me. You will soften him. Watson, beg him, get him here by any means. He can save me. Only he. I will bring him in a cab. If I have to carry him down to it, you will do nothing of the sort. You will persuade him to come, and then you will return in front of him. Make any excuse so as not to come with him. Don't forget, Watson, you won't fail me. You never did fail me. I left him babbling like a foolish child below. As I stood whistling for a cab, a man came on me through the fog. How is Mr. Holmes, sir? He asked. It was an old acquaintance, Inspector Morton of Scotland Yard, in his official clothes. He is very ill, I answered. He looked at me in with a strange expression that seemed almost like a smile. The cab had driven up, so I thought no more of it and I left him. Lower Wark Street proved to be a line of fine houses. The particular one at which my cabman pulled up had old-fashioned iron railings, a massive folding door, and shining brass work. All was in keeping with a solemn, formal, dignified butler who went to tell his master of my arrival. I heard murmuring, "He can come in the morning or he can stay away. My work must not be hindered." I thought of Holmes tossing upon his head of sickness and counting the minutes. Perhaps until I could bring help to him, his life depended upon my promptness. Before the apologetic butler had delivered his message, I had pushed past him and was in the room. "What is this?" Culverton Smith cried in a high, screaming voice. "What is the meaning of this intrusion? Didn't I send you word that I would see you tomorrow morning?" "I'm sorry," said I, "but the matter cannot be delayed. Mr. Sherlock Holmes." The mention of my friend's name had an extraordinary effect upon the little man. The look of Anger passed in an instant from his face. His features became tense and alert. Have you come from Holmes? He asked. He is desperately ill, desperately, seriously. That is why I have come. The man motioned me to a chair and turned to resume his own. As he did so, I caught a glimpse of his face in the mirror over the mantelpiece. I could have sworn that it was set in a malicious smile. Yet I must have been mistaken, for he turned to me an instant later with genuine concern upon his features. I only now, I only know Mr. Holmes through some business dealings which we have had, but I have every respect for him. It was an account of your special knowledge that Mr. Holmes desired to see you. He thought that you were the one man in London who could help him because of your knowledge of Eastern diseases. Mr. Culverton Smith smiled pleasantly and picked up his cap. I will come with you at once, he said. I remembered Holmes' command. I have another appointment, said I. Very good, I will go alone. You can rely upon my being there within half an hour at most. It was with a sinking heart that I re entered Holmes' bedroom. To my enormous relief, although his appearance was as ghastly as ever, he seemed greatly improved. He is coming, I told him. Admirable. Watson, you can now disappear from the scene. There is just room behind the head of my bed. Watson, my dear Holmes, I protested. I fear there is no alternative. Watson, the room doesn't have any other place of concealment. There are the wheels. Watson, quick, man, and don't budge. Budge, move, whatever happens, just listen with all your ears. Then, in an instant, his sudden access of strength departed, and he drifted into the low, vague murmurings of a semi delirious man. Delirious, delirious, unable to think or speak clearly because of fever. From the hiding place, I heard the opening and the closing of the bedroom door. I could imagine that our visitor was standing by the bedside and looking down at the sufferer. At last, that strange hush was broken. Holmes, he cried, can't you hear me? Holmes! There was a rustling as if he had shaken the sick man roughly by the shoulder. Is that you, Mr. Smith? Holmes whispered. It is very good of you to come, very noble of you. Help me, I am very sick. Our visitor sniggered. Do you know what is the matter with you? The same, said Holmes. Well, I shouldn't be surprised, Holmes. Poor Victor was a dead man on the fourth day. It was certainly, as you said, very surprising that he should have contracted an Asiatic Asiatic disease in the heart of London, Asiatic related to Asia, a disease too of which I had made such a very special study. Very smart of you to notice that, but rather charitable, uncharitable, unkind to suggest that it was cause and effect. I knew that you did it. Oh, you did you? Well, you couldn't prove it. Anyhow, I heard the rasping, labored breathing of the sick man. Give me the water, he gasped. You are precious near your end, my friend, but I don't want you to go till I have had a word with you. That's why I give you water. Here, I would like you to know before you die. Listen now, do you remember a box? An ivory box? It came on Wednesday by post. You opened it? Do you remember? Yes, yes, I opened it. There was a sharp spring inside it. Smoke joke. It was a joke? I sent it. If you had left me alone, I would not have hurt you. Holmes gasped. I remember this box on the table, this spring in it drew blood. And it may as well leave the room in my pocket. There goes your last shred of evidence. Shred, a strip of material. You can die with the knowledge that I kill you. Holmes' voice had sunk to an almost inaudible whisper. What is that? Said Culverton Smith. Turn up the gas. Anything else? Light a candle. I nearly called out in my joy and excitement. Holmes was speaking in his natural voice. There was a long pause, and I felt that Culverton Smith was standing in silent amazement, looking down at my companion. What is the meaning of this? I heard Culverton Smith say at last in a dry, rasping tone, rasping here, harsh sounding. The best way of successfully acting a part is to be it, said Holmes. I give you my word that for 3 days I have tasted neither food nor drink until you were good enough to pour me out that glass of water. Do I hear the step of a friend? The door opened and Inspector Morton appeared. This is your man, said Holmes. I arrest you on the charge of the murder of one Victor Savage, said Inspector Morton. And you might add of the attempted murder of one Sherlock Holmes, remarked my friend with a chuckle. Chuckle laughed quietly. By the way, the prisoner has a small box in the right hand pocket of his coat which may play its part in the trial. I am very careful with strange gifts that come by anonymous post. Anonymous, not identified by name. There was the click of the closing handcuffs. A nice trap, cried the high, snarling voice. Snarling of a person says something in an angry, bad-tempered voice. You can lie as you like, Holmes. My word is always as good as yours. Good heavens, cried Holmes. I had totally forgotten him. My dear Watson, I owe you a thousand apologies. I need not introduce you to Mr. Culverton Smith, since I understand that you met somewhat earlier in the evening. But your appearance, Holmes, I asked, how did you do it? 3 days of absolute fast does not improve one's beauty, Watson. A little water will fix the rest. With Vaseline upon one's forehead, rough over the cheekbones, and crust of beeswax round one's lips, a very satisfying effect can be produced. He wiped his face. You would have seen through it had I allowed you to treat me. When we have finished at the police station, I think that something nutritious as Simpsons would not be out of place. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Now come to the exercises. 1. Answer the following questions. A. Who told Dr. Watson that Holmes was ill? Answer. Sherlock Holmes' landlady. B. Explain how Holmes pretended to be ill. Comment on 1. His appearance. 2. His actions. Answer. Holmes pretended to be ill by acting but also by fasting for 3 days and disguising himself. He did that by putting Vaseline on his forehead to look feverish, rough on his cheeks to look flushed, and crusts of beeswax around his lips. He looked terrible. His face was gaunt. There was a hectic flush on his cheeks. He had dark crusts on his lips. He twitched his hands incessantly. His voice was croaking and spasmodic. He lay listlessly. 3. Where does Culverton Smith usually live? Answer is Sumatra. 4. Who had sent Holmes the ivory box and what was in it? The answer is the box had come by anonymous post, but it was from Mr. Culverton Smith. It had a spring inside that was designed to draw blood and infect anyone who opened it. 5. Why did Mr. Culverton Smith want to kill Holmes? Answer. Mr. Culverton Smith wanted to kill Holmes because Holmes had guessed that Mr. Culverton Smith had murdered his nephew Victor Savage. 6. Who was waiting outside Holmes' house and what signal was he waiting for? Answer. Inspector Morton was waiting outside Holmes' house. He was waiting for the lights to be turned on. 7. Where did Watson hide and why did Holmes need him there? Answer. Watson hid behind the head of the bed. Holmes needed him there so that he could witness Culverton's Culverton Smith's confession. These questions are more difficult. Discuss them first. H. Which details, not including the revelation that he is a murderer, create the impression that Culverton Smith is an unpleasant person? Answer. Culverton Smith is an unpleasant person because his dearest hobby is investigating a deadly disease for malicious reason. There is no good feeling between him and Holmes because he has a grudge against Holmes. He is unwelcoming to Watson. He appears to smile maliciously at the news that Holmes is ill and then pretend to be concerned. He seems to enjoy Holmes' distress and only gives him water so that he can tell him how he has made him ill or killed him before he dies. He has a nasty voice, and when he has been caught, he says that he will lie in court. I. What clues are there in the story that Holmes was not really ill? Answer. He shown He shows a gleam of recognition when Watson arrives. He leaps out of bed to stop Watson from leaving to fetch Dr. Anstey. He shouts to Watson to leave the box on the mantelpiece alone. He is very clear in the orders he gives Watson. Inspector Morton seems to smile when Watson tells him Holmes is very ill. He speaks in his normal voice as soon as he has had some water and heard Mr. Culverton Smith's confession. J. How does Holmes make sure that Watson does not guess that he is pretending? Why do you think he needs Watson to believe he is very ill? Answer. Holmes makes sure that Watson does not guess that he is pretending by making him stand back and by keeping the lights low. He needs Watson to believe he is very ill so that Watson can convince Mr. Culverton Smith and bring him to Holmes. 2. Comment on the italicized words in the following sentences. A. I could stand no more of it. To not be able to stand something means to be unable to tolerate something due to strong dislike. The landlady hated to see Mr. Holmes suffering and could not longer tolerate inaction. She insisted on getting a doctor. D. The sight of me brought a gleam of recognition to his eyes. When Holmes sees Watson, his friend, he looks at him. Gleam is often used to indicate an expression in the eyes that shows that someone is amused or has a secret. Perhaps Holmes, who is known for such behavior, is amused by his friend's reaction to his fake illness. Watson interprets this as a sign that Holmes is still just well enough to recognize him. See, you are not yourself. A sick man is but a child. To be yourself is to act naturally according to your character and instincts. Instinct. But Watson insists that Holmes' illness is making him act like someone who does not fully know themselves. He says that home is like a child because children do not always know themselves well. D. You will soften him. Watson, to soften someone is to weaken their resistance to someone or something. Holmes wants Watson to get the expert on his illness to come to him despite the grudge he holds against Holmes. It was with a sinking heart that I. Heart sinks means to feel uneasy, apprehensive, disappointed, or discouraged. When Watson re enters Holmes' bedroom, he is uneasy because he is worried that his health will have deteriorated further. F. And don't budge, whatever happens. Don't budge means don't move. Holmes wants Watson to stay hidden. 3. Answer the following questions with reference to context. A. It was certainly, as you said, very surprising that he should have contracted an Asiatic disease in the heart of London, a disease to of which I had made such a very special study. 1. Who is speaking? To whom? Answer. Mr. Culverton Smith is talking to Sherlock Holmes. 2. Who is being referred to? What had happened to him? Answer. Mr. Culverton Smith's nephew, Victor Savage. He was murdered by Mr. Culverton Smith, who infected him with a deadly disease. 3. Where was the disease from? The answer is Sumatra, Asia. B. The best way of successfully acting a part is to be it. 1. Who is speaking? Answer. Sherlock Holmes. 2. What part has he been acting? Answer is he has been acting the part of a very ill man who is close to death. 3. In what way was he being it? Answer is Holmes did not eat or drink for 3 days to make himself seem gaunt and weak. 4. What did the person want to do soon after this? Answer is he wants to eat something nutritious at a place called Simpson's. B. Working with words. There are a number of words in the story for which meanings have not been given in the words to know section. Here are some of them. First, find the words in the story. Then look up the words in a dictionary and finally use them in sentences of your own. A. Hectic. Modern life is becoming more hectic day by day. B. Nutritious. Animals like cow and goat give us very healthy and nutritious food called milk. C. Profusely. Profusely. She apologized profusely for her rude behavior. D. Rasping. When the child was in darkness, I could hear his breath rasping in his chest. E. Semi-delirious. As the patient's temperature went up suddenly, he became semi-delirious and didn't know where he was. F. Sniggered. During the party, he spent half the time sniggering at the clothes people were wearing. H. Fast. He had passed many a day fasting. I. Snarling. There was a tremendous snarling and screeching, he said to his wife. J. Labored. She labored many years in the cause of mercy to animals, orphans, and old persons. K. Intrusion. I hope you don't mind this intrusion, Joe, his parents said politely to him. 2. Insert apostrophes where necessary. A. We spoke to his father, who is in his 90s. There is no need to put apostrophe. In the 40s, Pakistan gained independence. Here, from 40s, you have to put or you have to insert apostrophes. See, in 92, he scored 550s. From 92, you have to insert apostrophes. D. The MPAs who attended the meeting in 86 stayed in the 5 DIG's houses. From 86 to DIG's houses, you have to insert apostrophes. E. All the PMs. PM after you have to insert apostrophe. Speeches at the conference were recorded and filmed. Learning about language. Change the following into reported speech. Where have you been? The man asked her. He asked her where she has been. Shad asked the boy, if you never try a new thing, how can you know what it's like? Shad asked the boy how he could know what a thing was like if he never tried it. I didn't find out whether they had seen the film, said Javed to his wife when they returned home. When they returned home, Javed told his wife he hadn't found out whether they had seen the film. Father, have you any idea at all of what's going on? John asked in a hushed voice. In a hushed voice, John asked his father if he had any idea what was going on. I don't know what's happening, John, but we are finding out, replied the father. The father told John that he didn't know what was happening, but they were finding out. Andrew paid for the house with all this gold and all these diamonds, exclaimed the boy to the old woman. The boy exclaimed to the old woman that she had paid for the house with all that gold and all those diamonds. It will disappear in a flash, protested Saima. Saima protested that it would disappear in a flash. Change the following sentences into direct speech. A. The people asked what the president says about this. What does the president say about this? Asked the people. B. The foreigner asked in his own language why he should join the travelers. Why should I join the travelers? The foreigner asked in his own tongue. C. The householder asked why he should let the stranger in. Why should I let the stranger in? The householder asked. D. The loudspeakers blared forth that people must leave the area immediately. The people must leave the area immediately, blared forth the loudspeakers. E. The scientists gave their unanimous verdict that the machine was not made of plastic. The machine is most definitely not made of plastic, the scientists declared unanimously. E. The scientists gave their unanimous verdict that the machine was not made of plastic. The machine is most definitely not made of plastic, the scientists declared unanimously. Say it in a different way. 4. Change the italicized phrases by completing the sentences with the cue word Do not change the meaning of the sentences. A. The people wanted to know the visitor's response. The people wanted to know what the visitor's response was. B. This is his destiny. This is where his life is headed. C. The God said something about the future being bright. The God said that good things lay ahead. Thanks for listening. For new videos, don't forget to subscribe my channel. And if you like my videos, please share and like.